Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jai Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. There might be some ladies coming, so sit over here. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Mr. Pad Paramahamsa Purvajikacharya Ashtotar to the Srimad Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrikacharya Ashtotar to the Srimad Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavindi ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. All right. Yes. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this 9th day of March, 2022 in San Diego. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 2 entitled Contents of the Gita Summarized. Text 50 on page 117. Buddhiyukto Chahatiha Ubhe Sukrita Dushkrite Tasmad Yogaya Yujyasva Yoga Karmasu Kaushalam Buddhiyukto Jahatiha Ubhe Sukrita Dushkrite Tasmad Yogaya Yujyasva Yoga Karmasu Kaushalam Buddhiyukto Jahatiha Ubhe Sukrita Dushkrite Tasmad Yogaya Yujyasva Yoga Karmasu Kaushalam Buddhiyukto Jahatiha Ubhe Sukrita Dushkrite Tasmad Yogaya Yujyasva Yoga Karmasu Kaushalam Buddhiyukto Jahatiha Ubhe Sukrita Dushkrite Tasmad Yogaya Yujyasva Yoga Karmasu Kaushalam Buddhiyukto Jahatiha Ubhe Sukrita Dushkrite Tasmad Yogaya Yujyasva Yoga Karmasu Kaushalam Buddhiyukto Jahatiha Ubhe Sukrita Dushkrite Tasmad Yogaya Yujyasva Yoga Karmasu Kaushalam. Anyone else? Buddhiyukto Jahatiha Ubhe Sukrita Dushkrite Tasmad Yogaya Yujyasva Yoga Karmasu Kaushalam. Okay. Anyone in Zoom land?
Buddhiyukto Jahatiha
Buddhiyukto Jahatiha
Ubhe Sukrita Dushkrite
Ubhe Sukrita Dushkrite
Tasmad Yogaya Yujyasva
Tasmad Yogaya Yujyasva
Yoga Karmasu Kaushalam.
Yoga Karmasu Kaushalam. Buddhiyukta, one who is engaged in devotional service. Jahati can get rid of iha in this life, ubhe, both sukrita dushkrite, good and bad results. Tasmat, therefore, yogaya, for the sake of devotional service, yujyasva, be so engaged. Yoga, Krishna consciousness, karmasu, in all activities, kaushalam, art. Translation, Krishna says to Arjuna, a man engaged in devotional service rids himself of both good and bad reactions even in this life. Therefore strive for yoga, which is the art of all work. Purport. Since time immemorial, each living entity has accumulated the various reactions of his good and bad work. As such, he is continuously ignorant of his real constitutional position. One's ignorance can be removed by the instruction of the Bhagavad Gita, which teaches one to surrender unto Lord Sri Krishna in all respects and become liberated from the chained victimization of action and reaction, birth after birth. Arjuna is therefore advised to act in Krishna consciousness, the purifying process of resultant action. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chukshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer humble obeisance unto him and all members of Shri Parampara. So this word Buddhi Yoga and Buddhi Yukta keeps coming up. And Srila Prabhupada has explained that it's nothing but Krishna consciousness. He defines it in one place as karma yoga, Krishna consciousness. And the basic principle is enunciated in these verses we've had since 45, and Bhogashvaya Prasaktanam. The idea is that the verse that really I was thinking of was text 47, Karmanye Vidikaras Te, that you're entitled to perform your duty. And there's two things going on. He's trying to get Arjuna to perform his duty out of devotion to Krishna. Krishna is saying you should do it because I'm asking to you, and because it has higher ramifications. The idea is that it's not only for Krishna, but Krishna has a purpose to the whole war. Arjuna is thinking simply about his relationship, bodily relationship with the different members on the other side. And that he's now representing a conditioned soul who is not thinking of the long term and the greater ramifications of his action, but rather the immediate effect, which may be unpleasant, but which is very much worthwhile if you think of the longer ramifications. This is the famous Shreyas and Preyas conundrum, is that the more, Prabhupada has said, the more we are involved in calculations of Preyas, immediate good, immediate pleasure, the more we're on the animal platform. Animals don't think very far ahead. You know, they're not planning for next week, and you know, that they can get trained up to do this, and you know, it's nothing like that. It's all the immediate good and bad, what's happening, and they're under the complete control of the senses. But human beings with our superior intelligence are meant to think of the long term, to ask questions that go beyond simply a material calculation. And that's the injunction of the Vedanta Sutra at the beginning. Tato Brahma Jigyasa. Now that you're, the implication is, you know, now therefore, now what means now what? Now that you're a human being, and you have a human body, you should inquire into Brahman, the absolute truth. What is it? It's the source of everything. Not only the source, Janmadi, the Adi is important. When you have the little sutras, every syllable is important. Janmad yasya yataha. So Janma means birth, Adi means maintenance and destruction. So the source of all those three. Now that has to be a personality who's not subject to them. And that's what Krishna says in the Bhagavatam, the famous Ahameva Sameva Gre Nanya Jetsara Satparam. There's 4 verses known as the Chatur Shloki Bhagavatam, from which the whole Bhagavatam expanded. These are spoken by Krishna to Brahma, who then passed them on to Narada, and came down to Vyasa and expanded it into what we have today. But it starts out with, who is God? Who is the source of everything? And Krishna is saying there, Aham, I, before there was any material manifestation, I existed. That means that I must be the source of it. And after it's manifested, there's nothing there but me, through my energies. And in the end, when I draw it all back into myself, I still remain, and the energy is contained in the subtle form. And then this is how things go. So that's the answer to the inquiry into what is the absolute truth, if you're ready to accept it. Krishna. Krishna is the source of everything. So those are the kind of questions that we should prioritize in our life. The keeping body and soul together, all of these things, they have to go on, but we should do it minimal. In the second chapter, first canto, this comes up. The Bhagavatam is understood to be the best commentation on the Brahma Sutra, on the Vedanta Sutra. That's why Lord Chaitanya didn't write or have written, had someone else write a commentary. He regarded Bhagavatam as the perfect commentary, as opposed to the Sharirika Bhashya of Shankaracharya, which came up with a impersonal conclusion. So, but later on, you may know the history that there was a Bhashya written, a commentary written by Baladev Vijayabhushan, because there was some problem with the Mahants in Jaipur, doubting the validity of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. So we have a commentary, the Govinda Bhashya. But unless one is focused on answering those questions, and the same questions that Sanatana Goswami asked Lord Chaitanya: who am I? Why are the threefold miseries giving me so much suffering? If I don't know answer these questions, how am I a learned person? Am I really a human being? You know, he's asking for us. And so Krishna is actually systematically destroying all of Arjuna's arguments for why he shouldn't fight. He gives himself as an example of if I didn't perform any duties, I don't have to perform any duties, but if I didn't, this will come up in the next chapter, then everyone would take me as an example, and I would be the cause of the degradation of the society. So by not performing your duty, the same thing is that then you're going to be, the battle's going to go on anyway. Nobody's leaving the battlefield alive except you Pandavas, basically. So you can't save them. But what you lose is, on the material platform, remember we had those verses where he's just speaking at Kshatriya to Kshatriya. How does this impotence come upon you? People will defame you. They're not going to think you're doing it out of kindness. They'll think you left the battlefield out of cowardice. For one who is honored, dishonor is worse than death. That was the old translation, which is actually better. Jayadvaita Maharaj told me he regrets that one. But it's the same idea. For one who's received so much praise, then to be dishonored is worse to just go through normally without being praised. You know what I'm saying? So Arjuna is highly regarded as such a wonderful Kshatriya and personality. And now to slink off the battlefield, no one's heard these first two chapters except Krishna. They're going to think, oh, Arjuna's finally a coward at the final moment of truth. You know? So that's just the material argument. But he's coming to the point here. This verse 47, Karma Nemadikadaste, you have a right to perform your duty, you should perform it, but don't covet the fruits. And don't think that you're the performer. It's being performed by the three modes of nature. And so you take out the two main motivations for people to work, to enjoy the fruits and to think, oh, look at the wonderful work I've done. He said, don't think like that. I don't want to work. No. Mate sangos karmani. Don't be attached to not doing your duties. He covers all the bases. One verse. So why work? You know. So the point is, you work for the sake of performing your duty, but really because Krishna wants you to. Because what the advantage of that is not coveting the fruits of the work, is that whatever fruits there are, you're giving to Krishna, and the whole thing. Your whole life begins to revolve around every activity being an act of devotion to Krishna, an act of love for Krishna. This was spoken of this morning by the class, a nice class by Narantara Babu. And there was one verse that kept going through my mind. It's kind of an expansion of this Yat Karoshi Yarashnasi verse that you find in chapter 9. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you give away in charity, do it as an offering to me. But in the 11th canto, the 9 Yogendras are speaking, and one of the verses says, this is the ideal mentality for a devotee. Kaye nabacha manasin liyaba buddhyap naba anusata subhavat kadodi yadyat sakalam parasmai narayanayati samarpayetat. You know this one. It says, whatever you have, you know, what do we really have? The body, vacha, the words, the mind, the senses, right? The intelligence. Whatever we have at our disposal, whatever activity perform, we should think, this is an offering to Narayan. This is an offering to Krishna. You're walking from point A to point B. I'm taking these steps because there's some mission for Krishna. Okay, I'm going to work. I need to keep body and soul together, you know, so that I can perform my services for Krishna. You know, and whatever you know I make in terms of money, if there's any that I can spare, for beyond that, then I'll give it for Krishna. I'll help like that. So therefore, every breath is an act of devotion. When you actually have that you can only have that consciousness when you come to the point of unbroken remembrance. Then you can see every step, every movement, and we saw that with Prabhupada. He'd pick up a phone, but it wasn't just picking up a phone. It was like dressing the deity. It's like every movement is graceful and conscious. This whole idea of mindfulness, yes, be mindful of Krishna at every moment, and that your whole being is meant for expressing love to Krishna. Think of it that way, and then you're back home, back to Godhead already. Iha yasya haridase karmanamana sagara nikalashupyavasa jivan mukta sa uchite. This idea of jivan mukta, that even in this lifetime you can be liberated. You don't have to wait to die and then go merge into the Brahman or anything. So what is the qualification described in this verse? Iha. Now there's a word iha, short I, short a, which means here. And this word iha, which means activities. Whatever activities you perform should be done as haridasi, as servant for Hari. Activities is what? Karmana manasa ira. With your senses, your active senses, which also your knowledge acquiring senses. With your mind, with your voice. These are our main activities, active senses. Nikala, all of Nikalashuktastu, Jivan Muktasa Uchite. If all of those activities are within the realm of devotional service for Hari, then you're pure devotee. We should aspire for that. So that's, so then you're completely fulfilling all of the injunctions that Krishna is giving here. You're not coveting the fruits of the work. You're performing the activity to the best of your ability, but you realize that the result of it is up to Krishna. The very activity itself is the perfection of it. See, this is a great advantage. The fruit of actors, I remember, I used to live in the New York area, and we sometimes cross over the Brooklyn Bridge. I think that was the first of the big bridges that were made in New York. And it was a big marvel of architecture at the time. It took a lot of work. But I was thinking, okay, so what if they had, they got all the money together and they had all the workers and they built anything, but it didn't work out, and the bridge was half built. Complete waste, right? Or the Empire State Building only went halfway up. That's the thing with material activity. You may plan to do it, you may want to do it, you may invest in it, but it may be a complete failure. And ultimately, it's worse than a failure, because even if you succeed and then you enjoy the fruits, then you're bound even tighter to this world, you see? But in Krishna consciousness, you may succeed or not succeed, but you have not tied any more knots, karmic knots. It's completely akarmic, everything burned up. And as described in the verse we just read, what is that? Oh yeah, by Buddha Yukta, linking up, ube sukrita duskrite, jahati ube sukrita duskrite means it destroys all your good and bad karma. For us, good karma is just as bad karma, because it keeps you bound here. And you may, you have to come back to enjoy this, but in the process of enjoying the results of your good activities, you may be formed from bad activities, then you get suffering. So it just keeps you entangled up in the big banyan tree we read about in chapter 15. So we certainly don't want ordinary karma, fruit of activity, even if it's within the Vedic paradigm, because you go to heaven, you come back, you're still entangled. We certainly don't want V-karma, which is sure to produce suffering, right? That's sinful activity. What we want is akarma. We want inaction in action, which will be described in chapter 4. In other words, we may do so many things, but we're not actually doing anything on our own account, and therefore we're not incurring any new karma, and we're erasing the old karma. That's why I said sukrita duskrite is destroyed. Therefore, be in yoga. Think of Krishna, link up your intelligence to him, buddhi yukta, and this is the art of yoga, and this is the art of all work. How to live in this world in such a way that we don't deepen our entanglement, and we're making progress in getting out and going back to guided. That's the whole art of work. And it's taught in the Bhagavad Gita and all our Vedic Shastras. Okay, any questions about this one? Please, Arjun.
So, on 47th, the Karmanyavadhikara, a very popular verse. I could understand all of it. Above the purport, the last, after the comma, it says, and never be attached to not doing your duty. So, that's a little bit confusing to me.
Why is that confusing?
Never be attached to not doing your duty.
That was Arjun's whole problem.
Let's say someone is an architect, for example, right?
Yeah.
He should be attached to performing his drawings. Otherwise, he can get the best out of it, isn't it? Or does it mean something else?
No. The point is that he's taking it, he says, okay, karma nyevidikadaste, you have a right to perform your duty. Oh, good. But I'll do what I like to do. Whatever. But don't, ma paleshu, kadach. What do you mean, ma paleshu? I mean, I like doing the drawings, and mechanical engineering, whatever I'm doing. But I need, I'm a professional. I need to get a good compensation so I can live in Pacific Beach. Otherwise, what's the point? Well, okay, that's one thing. And you mean I can't even be proud of the nice drawing that I made and all the work and get some honors? Ma karma palahetu. When you think you're the doer, you want the honor, right? You want the recognition. No, you realize it's modes of nature, it's higher forces. And then, so there's no motivation. You don't have the motivation of the fruit, and you don't have the motivation of the honor. So I don't want to do my duty. Mate sangos to karmani. Don't be attached to not doing it. In other words, do it. Do it for the sake of duty. But really, the final, where did this come from? The final bottom line is, do it because I want you to do it. Because this will deepen your realization that you're just a servant of God, a servant of Krishna.
It's basically, even though you are doing it, but the source is coming from Krishna. Krishna is making you do it, and then the results, what you are getting out of it, that's also goes back.
So back to
goes
Krishna.
back.
Yeah, and that's within the idea of us being like, our ideal identity is being like a hand of Krishna. Like our hand is a good servant, right? Each left hand, right hand. And, I don't even think, you don't think twice. I need some water. And the hand reacts. Okay, the nerves, the whole thing's going on. Boom. And if the hand didn't do that, it would be worse than nothing. It would be an impediment, right? So that's what we become. We became like that in the spiritual world. We were disturbances to the other devotees. Just like if you make do nonsense in the ashram, you can't stay. You have to get out because you make a big disturbance. It's a little mini Vaikuntha, supposed to be anyway. So the idea is that if we have to culture, it's a culture, this consciousness that we're not doing anything because the impetus for action is coming from Krishna, and not only the impetus for action, but the facility to do the action. We realize that we're meant to be his helpers. Nimitta matam bhavasabhyasachin. And be my agent, like he says in the 11th chapter. And that's our natural state, and it brings a great sense of peace and hope. And there's really no hope on the material side. There's just a lot of delusion. There's no hope that you can, that you can be happy and peaceful in this world. It's a hope against hope. Durashya bahiratamanina. Durashya means an aspiration that is always far, far from being fulfilled. But there's great hope when you align yourselves with Krishna's desire. And you gradually do those things, the sadhana, that allows you to remember more and more Krishna's name, form, qualities, and pastimes. And it's so, there's such a wealth of access now. Prabhupada gave us the holy name and gradually gave us his books, which are treasures, every one of them. But there's so many other, like this devotee I knew back in the 70s, he taught himself Sanskrit. He was a super genius named Kushakrata. He started translating the different, some of the different books of the acharyas, beginning with the Stavamala and then others. And this is our tradition. I mean, Prabhupada was asked, what about these other books? Yes, we want to have the Sandarbhas. He mentioned the Sandarbhas. That's why they started working on them in 1994. I was part of that. Now the Sandarbhas have been translated by Bhanu Swami, like that. And so what's the advantage? It's just like, Prabhupada when he was singing those songs, Well, this is part of our tradition. And Yamuna learned them and Chidananda learned them, And that expands our ways in which we can meditate on Krishna and enjoy, enter into the bhakti rasa. The basic way is kirtan. That's universal. Everyone can learn it, and participate. But the idea is there's a real ocean of joy there, ocean of happiness that doesn't have anything to do with us enjoying sense gratification. The happiness comes from giving Krishna pleasure by glorifying Him and meditating on Him, because we're hooked up to Him that way. And then you realize, yes, it's I don't need all of these accoutrements to be happy. Simple things in relation to Krishna. So it's a great revelation, and it's a great liberation too, from the rat race of trying to enjoy more and more senses. I mean, when I walk from here to there, we're on the beach, so naturally, people, even now it's cold weather, but still, these poor ladies, these young ladies, they think they have to dress in as tight pants as possible. It's really painful to watch. They're not going to be happy that way. They may attract this one, that one, and everything. But it's a degradation of society. And Krishna consciousness is exactly opposite to that. Is that don't become absorbed in the body. It's just a crazy. As you get older, you can realize it's just a fool's errand. They keep sending me all of these notices. This is how. Do your knees hurt? We got something for you. This new revolutionary ointment that we created. Everyone's a huckster. The fact is, my knees don't hurt, but if they did, I wouldn't, I was just reading or hearing. I hear Prabhupada's lectures again and again, And there's, I love to hear the ones the talks he gave on the teachings of Lord Kapila Dev, especially the one 325, 20 to 27, which has the verse about Tatiksha Karunika, the qualities of a sadhu, and Satam Pasangan, the most easy process of yoga, which is sadhu sangha and hearing about Krishna and chanting about Krishna. And there's one verse there where it says, you don't suffer as much. He says, by becoming absorbed in Krishna Katha, Madashaya Katam Rishta, Shinvanti Katayanti Cha, Tapandi Vavadastapa, Naitan Mangata Chetasad. That Marashya Katam Rishta, it has two meanings. One is that the talk, the sound has taken shelter of Krishna. In other words, it's related to Krishna. Katam Rishta, very attractive in and of itself. Shunvanti Katayanti, hearing and chanting. Then for someone who's always in that mood, hearing and chanting, remembering, then the natural miseries that come from being in the material world don't impinge on his consciousness so much. Yes, you're aware of it, but you're not identifying with the body. And you're absorbed in Krishna, so they don't bother you as much. That's what he said. Tapandi vivadas tapa naitan madgata chetasa, because the mind is on me, is on Krishna. So this is real liberation. Not desiring the petty pleasures of the senses, but absorbing the mind in remembering Krishna, glorifying Krishna, and in this way enjoying like anything. As Prahlad Maharaj says. What is it? Naivod Vijay Padadratya Vaita Twad Virya Gayana Mahamata Magna Chitta. He's speaking to Nrsingadev. At any time, I can chant your powerful glories, Virya Gayana, sing them, and Mahamrita Magna Chitta. Drown my mind, immerse my mind in the great nectar of your glories. And therefore, I have no problems. But I am lamenting for the poor souls who are trying to enjoy Maya Sukhaya, and therefore I have to stay and try to give them Krishna. This is the preacher's meditation, that verse in the prayers of Prahlad Maharaj.
Thank you.
All right, should we go on? Oh, Banit. Why do we have only one? Oh, we have another one here, dormant. Suresh, pick that up and give it to Anand in case. Okay, now we're well deployed now. Go ahead, Boo.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. In this verse, it's saying, in the verse number 50, that a man engaged in devotional service rids himself of both bad and good reactions. Basically, they're not touched by karma anymore when they do devotional service. I'm wondering if someone performs devotional service, especially as a neophyte, bringing their material motivations while practicing bhakti, does the process of karma affect them and the results that they get as they practice bhakti?
Well, there's the old analogy, I'm sure you heard it 100 times, if not more, of the fan still moving, In other words, you come to Krishna consciousness, you've got a whole momentum of many births of fruitive action and reactions that are working, you know. So it's not an instantaneous process. The more that you're actually performing devotional service, selfless service, you're doing the sadhana, you're certainly not doing fruitive activity. Krishna, your eons of worth of karma are being eradicated. But there's still a tendency for the mind to go to that fruitive side and get, you know, engage in karma. Because I've often wondered about that. I mean, there's so many verses about if you just chant one name, you know, you're liberated. You know, Marana Marana Metan, there's so many good. And then, but okay, we go on Harinam, you know, and people may come and say, oh look, there's the Hare Krishnas. They may even stop and chant, you know. And then they go on, and they go on with their way, and they go into the bar, and you know, what happened? I thought they were liberated. Yeah, they're liberated, but the tendency to perform fruitive acts is still there. And unless they understand the philosophy and they actually are thinking, you know, they associate with the devotee, basically, they're just, you know, going to continue with their lives and start in a whole new chain of karma. So it's not that you immediately become the pure devotee, obviously. And so, but previous karmas that we don't even know about, you know, the different levels of karma, prarabdha karma, bija, and kutas. So those are eliminated or eradicated, but to get to the point of actually naishkarmya, which is the state of acting in such a way that you're not getting any karmic reactions, that's a more advanced state. For that you have to perform sadhana so that even the tendencies to perform karmic activity are eradicated. And at last, the desire to perform is eradicated. You see what I'm saying? In other words, if you become strong enough, you have a sayatmaka buddhi, we went through that, a determination, then you can act strictly. Although the desires may be there, you don't act on them. But the more that you don't act on them, and the more that your desires are within the realm of Krishna consciousness, gradually those desires even dry up. This is another part of that teaching of Kapila. I think it's the last verse? No, the next to last verse. Bhaktyapaman jata viraga indriyad drishta shuddhaman vachananu chintaya. So he's saying that by this process of bhakti, which is centered on sadhu sangha and hearing about me, which is the easiest type of yoga, we're talking about yoga here, generates vairagya itself. What kind of vairagya? For not only those pleasures or sense pleasures that you may directly see, but those you've just heard about, meaning the heavenly planets. You don't even want to go to the heavenly planets. Who cares? I mean, I never wanted to go to the heavenly planets. You know, I was fortunate. I did, you know, because I was in the West. Now, if I was in India and I heard about Nandanandana, you know, and I was in that culture, there might have been some interest there. I don't know. But the point is, once you taste Krishna consciousness, that also becomes phantasmagoria, a mirage. That's explained by Parodananda Saraswati. He has a famous verse Prabhupada would quote all the time. Kaivalyam nadakayate. Anyone heard this one? Kaivalyam nadakayate. To the support, Akasha pushpayate. Durdan dendri yakara sabapatadi prodkata dangstrayate. Vishwam purna sukhayate. Vidamahindra adishtaki tayate. Yat karunyaka taksha vaibhavapadham tam goldam evastama. I praise the golden avatar, Lord Chaitanya. This is in the Chaitanya Chandramrita. Very nice book. I recorded it once. And he says, he goes through systematically. Kaivalya, oh, that's a very attractive thing, you know, for some people, in personal liberation. For a devotee, it's like going to hell. Because there's three things are needed for bhakti. The bhakta, Bhagavan, and the process of bhakti. So if you merge into the Brahman, you don't even have any senses anymore. There's no form or qualities and name of Krishna. It's just, you know, and there's no process of bhakti. So the devotee would rather be in hell, where at least he can chant Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, save me. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So that's the first thing. And then there's the Tridashapur, the 33 million or whatever, you know, all of the different varieties of heavenly planets. Akasha Pushpa. Who can say what the Akash Pushpa is? Flower in the sky. It's unreal. In other words, it becomes like a mirage. You're not interested in it. It doesn't exist, like a horn of a rabbit or something. So then the difficult to control senses. Now you're on. So first your karma kanda, then the impersonalist liberation. Then the next third one is the yogis, you know, and they're always fighting with the senses. You know, the yogis who are not meditating on Krishna in the heart, but they're trying to get the siddhis and all of that, you know. So it says durdantandriya kala. So the difficult to control senses, which are like poisonous snakes, they'll bite you at any time. Enjoy your consciousness here and there like that. You still have the senses, and you're using them in Krishna's service, so they have their teeth removed. In other words, they look the same, but they're not dangerous anymore, because they're using them in Krishna's service. And what about the demigods? No, first is Vishram Purna Sukhayate. The whole universe is full of happiness for you, because you see Krishna's pastimes everywhere. You're free of any material desire to enjoy it, you see, and therefore you're peaceful and you're happy. And as far as the demigods, great demigods like Brahma, and etc., and Mahindra, Big Indra, you offer them all respects. You know, they're devotees, great devotees, but you're not worshiping them. And it says here, this is typical Bodhananas, they're no more significant to you than insects. Okay. And how do you get this quality? By getting the merciful sidelong glance of Lord Chaitanya. By being sincere in devotional service and trying to help others. So that's the benefits of Krishna consciousness. Okay, should we do one more? We only do one verse. Okay, text 51. Karmajam buddhi yuktahi palam tyuktva manishinaha janma bandhavani mukta padam gacchantanamayam. By thus engaging in devotional service to the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the results of work in the material world. In this way, they become free from the cycle of birth and death and attain the state beyond all miseries by going back to Godhead. Purport: the liberated living entities belong to that place where there are no material miseries. The Bhagavatam 10:1458 says, I'll say, you say. Samashchitaye padapallavaplavam Mahatpadam punnayasho marare Bhavambudi vatsapadam param padam 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 yanvipadang natesham. For one who has accepted the boat of the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of the cosmic manifestation and is as famous as Mukunda, or the giver of mukti, the ocean of this material world is like the water contained in a calf's footprint, or hoofprint. That's been fixed to hoofprint. Parampadam, or that place where there are no material miseries, or Vaikuntha, is his goal, not the place where there is danger in every step of life. Owing to ignorance, one does not know that this material world is a miserable place where there are dangers at every step. Out of ignorance only, less intelligent persons try to adjust to the situation by fruit of activities, thinking that the resultant actions will make them happy. Prabhupada's, there's certain idiomatic expressions. Resultant actions is wholly equivalent to reactions. Will make them happy. They do not know that no kind of material body anywhere within this universe can give life without miseries. The miseries of life, namely birth, death, old age, and diseases, are present everywhere within the material world. But one who understands his real constitutional position as the eternal servitor of the Lord, and thus knows the position of the personality of Godhead, engages himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Consequently, he becomes qualified to enter into the Vaikuntha planets, where there is neither material, miserable life, nor the influence of time and death. To know one's constitutional position means to know also the sublime position of the Lord. One who wrongly thinks that the living entity's position and the Lord's position are on the same level is to be understood to be in darkness and therefore unable to engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord. He becomes a Lord himself and thus paves the way for the repetition of birth and death. But one who, understanding that his position is to serve, transfers himself to the service of the Lord, at once becomes eligible for Vaikuntha Loka. Service for the cause of the Lord is called Karma Yoga or Buddhi Yoga, or in plain words, devotional service to the Lord. So, Karma Jam Buddhi Yukta Hi Palam Chakva Manishana. So for the one who is in Buddhi Yukta, practicing Buddhi Yoga, or in other words, is linked to Krishna through the process of Bhakti Yoga, whatever is generated from his activities, those pala, those fruits, he gives them up, the intelligent devotee, and he gives them up to Krishna. And thus, Janma Bandha Vinuyamukta, he's liberated from the bondage of rebirth and death, diseases. And Padam Gachanjanamam, he goes to that place where there's no miseries. That's the Vaikuntha world. So here we have a nice, concise verse describing the benefits of this, which I first knew as selfless service. Selfless service. But it's more than selfless service. It means, yes, it's not focusing on oneself, but focusing on the Supreme Self. In that sense, it's not really selfless. But you're recognizing that your advantage, your real constitutional position, is to focus on the desires and the happiness of the Supreme Self. And then, being part and parcel of that Supreme Self, we'll also be happy and fulfilled. That's the whole science of Krishna consciousness. So this verse is very famous. Prabhupada loved to quote it. You have to be deaf not to hear the poetry in this verse. Tamashadaye padapallavaplavam mahatpadam punyayasho marare bhavambade vatsapadam parampadam padam yadvipadam. So this bhavambade vatsapadam, this is a wonderful image here. It's an ocean. We haven't how big the ocean is. It's awe-inspiring when people go down just to look at the ocean. How can you cross it? You need so much help just to get across. But here, the whole ocean of birth and death shrinks down to the water, not even in a cow's hoofprint, but a calf's hoofprint. That you're going to step across it. And not for them is this place which is full of so many dangers, Vibhadam. To be in the place of Vaikuntha, where there's no anxiety. Can you imagine? There's so much anxiety. First we have the pandemic, now we have this war threatening nuclear annihilation. It's madness. You never know what's going to happen. And then there's your own little, personal apocalypse that occurs. Everyone goes through. I mean, what's the difference? So that's material life. You go through and you do so many things to forget your mortality and all these things. But it's always there. We're living in a complicated machine called the material body that's been given to us, and because it's a human body, it has a certain very wonderful purpose, and we're wasting it. It's a tragic waste. And this is what the great devotees see, the Paramahamsas. They say, oh, all these human beings, and they're wasting their human life, and so they see the urgency of trying to give Krishna consciousness to others. Because they themselves are drinking the nectar at every step, every moment. That's why it says at every step, right? Padam padam vidvipadam. So in material life, there's danger at every step. But in spiritual life, in Krishna consciousness, there's happiness at every step. So many varieties of services and festivals and experiences, and there's always Krishna's presence there. So we should take example of that boat. There's a lot of boats. Lord Krishna in the 11th canto is this famous verse. Some of you may know, Nirdehamadyam sulabham sudurlabham. Okay, it's one we have to learn. Nirdehamadyam sulabham sudurlabham plavam sukalpam gurukarna dharam mayanukulyena nabhasviteritam puman bhavabdim natadetsa atmaha. Very instructive verse. Nirdeham, the human body, naradeham. Adyam is endowed with very important qualities. Nirdeham adyam sulabham sudurlabham. Now this is a play on words because they mean opposite things. Sulabham sudurlabham. Sulabham means very easy to attain. Means that every soul automatically eventually comes to the human form of life. But It's rare. There's 7 billion of us, but there's 100 trillion insects. So, sulabham sudurlabham, plavam, a very nicely constructed boat, plavam sukalpam guru karnadam, to cross over the ocean of birth and death. And then there's also a very nice captain in the form of the qualified guru, guru karnadaram. And then what about the favorable winds? It's a sailboat, one of those old sailboats, big sails on them. So Krishna, mayanukulyena, my words in the Vedas are the favorable winds by which you can employ this boat to go across the ocean. Nabhasvideritam. So puman bhavabdim nataret, that human being who does not cross over the ocean of birth and death, bhavabdim nataret sa atmaha, is committing virtual suicide. Wasting the human form of life and postponing his stay in this world. So we should take advantage of this human form and hook up with the proper guru, qualified guru, and take Krishna's words as the favorable winds and cross this ocean, go back to Godhead. Any final comment or question?
The second paragraph it says, where to know one's constitutional position, to know also the sublime position of the Lord.
Yeah. Well, what is our constitutional position? What Chaitanya said? Very simple. Jivera Sodapoy Krishnera Nityadas. So the Swarup, this is the constitutional position, our eternal position, we may have forgotten it, is to be the servant of Krishna. And they're connected. In other words, you can't just know yourself. It's not sufficient just to know I'm not the body, I'm pure spirit. Prabhupada makes that point. That's an important first step, but it's necessary but not sufficient. One has to know that there's a supreme spirit, that we're both persons, and that our natural relationship is one of service. Nitya das, eternally servant. And if we act in that relationship, learn how to act in that relationship by hearing from Guru and Sadhu Shastra, then we'll be situated in our constitutional position, and we'll be well on our way back to Godhead. So that's the idea, is that they come together. You can't just know who Krishna is. What's the relationship? This is, sambandha. Who am I? What is God? What is this world? What are the relationships? Then you're on your way. Okay, we have to adjourn. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol. I hope I didn't freeze anyone out in the Zoom world. Anyway, I'll hear about it if I did. All right, we'll resume next week with text 52.